"Step out of the vehicle. Now." The officer's voice cut through the night like a blade, his hand resting near his holster. A sleek black sedan idled under the streetlight, its driver, a black woman in her 40s, sitting calm, composed, yet immediately branded suspicious. To him, she wasn't a judge, wasn't a leader of justice, just another face he assumed didn't belong behind the wheel of such a car. What he didn't know was that in less than 10 minutes, his career would crumble in front of everyone. Have you ever been judged by someone who had no idea who you truly were? Tell us in the comments. It was a quiet evening in the city, the kind of night where the streets hummed with a mix of traffic lights and distant sirens. Judge Maya Carter had just finished another long day in court, her mind replaying the weight of the cases she had presided over. She was known for her sharp intellect, her unshakable fairness, and her calm presence that demanded respect without raising her voice. But outside the courtroom, she carried herself with quiet humility. To most, she looked like any other hard-working professional heading home. Sliding into her car, she allowed herself a moment of relief. The leather seat, the soft hum of the engine, the familiar comfort of her evening drive. These were her small escapes from the intensity of her role. Her car wasn't just a vehicle, it was a reward she had earned through years of dedication and sacrifice. Every mile she drove was a reminder of how far she had come from her modest beginnings. But the truth about Maya's life was that respect wasn't always given freely. No robe, no gavel, no title could shield her from the judgments of a world that saw her skin before her story. She knew that reality all too well, and tonight she was about to be reminded of it in the most humiliating way. As she merged onto the quieter streets near her neighborhood, she noticed headlights trailing her car a little too closely. At first, she brushed it off. Just another impatient driver. But when the lights didn't fade, when they pressed harder against her bumper, unease crept in. Then came the flashing red and blue, demanding she pull over. She sighed, a sinking weight filling her chest. She had done nothing wrong, but experience told her this wasn't about a broken taillight or a missed signal. No, this was something deeper, uglier. And as the officer stepped out of his cruiser, striding toward her with authority, Maya had no idea that this encounter would not only test her composure, but also expose the very prejudice she had spent her career fighting against. What would you do if someone tried to strip away your dignity in an instant without knowing who you truly were? Before we continue, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. The officer's flashlight cut through the dark, its harsh beams sweeping over Maya's car like she was a suspect on the run. He tapped the glass with the back of his knuckles, sharp, impatient, a sound meant to remind her who was in control. Maya rolled the window down slowly, her hands steady on the wheel. She had seen too many lives ruined by the smallest misstep. "License and registration," he snapped, though she hadn't even spoken yet. His eyes weren't on her face, but on the car, the rims, the shine of the paint, like every detail was evidence of a crime. She handed over her documents, calm, measured, but the officer didn't look convinced. He studied her driver's license, then glanced at her, his lips curling into something between suspicion and disdain. "This car's reported stolen," he said flatly. His tone wasn't questioning, it was accusing. The words hit like a slap, sharp and humiliating. For a moment, Maya's breath caught in her chest. Stolen? Her car? Her own name on the registration papers in his hand? It didn't matter. In his eyes, the truth wasn't believable because of who she was. Maya knew this game too well. A black woman in a nice car at night, it was all the excuse he needed. She could feel the weight of passing cars, slowing, curious eyes peeking, phones maybe already recording. The officer's voice grew louder, commanding her to step out. She complied, not because she was guilty, but because she understood the risk of refusal. Every movement was deliberate, slow, visible, non-threatening. Her heart pounded, but her face remained composed. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. As she stood on the pavement, The officer circled the vehicle like a predator, shaking his head, muttering under his breath about people like her. Each word carried an old venom, a reminder that in his eyes, she was less than the badge he wore. Then came the worst blow. He reached for his radio. His voice carried into the night, loud enough for bystanders to hear. Possible suspect detained. Black female, stolen vehicle confirmed. Requesting backup. Humiliation burned hot in her chest. He wasn't just accusing her, he was broadcasting it, painting her as a criminal to anyone within earshot. She could see people gathering across the street, their whispers filling the air. To them, she was now a headline in the making, another incident. But beneath that calm exterior, Maya's resolve hardened. This was more than an insult. This was a challenge to her dignity, her career, her very identity. And what the officer didn't realize was that the truth he was dismissing so casually was about to become the weapon that shattered his arrogance. Every second, the tension grew, the night pressing tighter around them. Backup was on the way. His hand hovered close to his holster, his authority swelling with each breath. But Maya knew her moment was coming. A single reveal that would turn this entire scene upside down. And when it did, the officer's career wouldn't just falter. It would collapse in front of the very people he thought were watching him win. The officer squared his shoulders, hand grazing his holster, as if he were preparing for the slightest excuse to escalate. His voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding. He barked the words loud enough for the small crowd to hear, his authority swelling with every syllable. To him, this was a victory, another criminal caught, another moment to flex his power. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears, but her face remained composed. She had spent years mastering calm under fire. Still, the sting of humiliation pressed deep. To be stripped down to nothing more than a stereotype, in public, under flashing lights, it was a wound sharper than any insult. The backup sirens wailed faintly in the distance, a reminder that soon more officers would arrive. More eyes would see her treated as a suspect instead of the respected judge she was. Time was closing in. And then, with deliberate calm, Maya reached into her bag. The crowd hushed. The officer's hand tightened on his holster, his stance rigid, his voice trembling with a barked warning. Don't move another inch. But she didn't flinch. Slowly, carefully, she drew out a small leather case and held it up, the gold seal catching the glow of the streetlights. The murmurs began instantly, some gasps, some disbelief. In one swift motion, she flipped it open, her judicial ID, her title spelled in bold letters that left no room for doubt. Judge Maya Carter. The officer froze, his face draining of color. The crowd erupted in whispers. Phones zoomed closer, recording every second. The predator who had strutted in power now looked like prey, cornered by the very truth he had ignored. Maya's voice, steady and clear, cut through the silence. You just detained a sitting judge. On false suspicion? On camera. The officer stumbled, words failing, his authority collapsing like glass under a hammer. And as the sirens drew closer, the realization swept over him. His career wasn't just in danger, it was over. What do you think happens when the other officers arrive to find the truth laid bare? Tell us in the comments before you see how this story ends. The backup cars screeched to a halt, their lights painting the street in streaks of red and blue. Officers stepped out, ready for confrontation, until they saw the badge in Maya's hand. The shift was instant. The crowd fell silent, phones still raised, capturing every twitch of the disgraced officer's face as realization set in. Maya didn't yell, she didn't argue. She simply stood, calm and unshaken, her presence towering over the chaos. For years, she had defended justice from behind the bench, but tonight, justice had defended her. The other officers glanced at each other uneasily, their eyes flicking between the ID and the man who had just broadcast her as a suspect. There was no undoing it. His words had been heard. His arrogance had been recorded.
His career, built on authority, crumbled in the span of seconds. Maya slid her ID back into her bag, lifted her chin, and returned to her car with quiet dignity. She didn't need revenge. The truth had already spoken louder than any argument could. The officer, once so confident, now stood small beneath the weight of his mistake. His name destined to be remembered not for valor, but for disgrace. Driving away, Maya felt the sting of what had happened, but also the strength of what she represented. She knew this wasn't just about her. It was about every black man and woman who had been judged, accused, or humiliated without reason. Her story was a mirror of a reality millions face daily. Only hers had ended with proof of her authority. And that's the real question. How many more lives will be reduced to stereotypes before dignity